Immigration is a hot political topic in the UK. There are many misleading statements and myths. This video checks the data and smashes 6 myths. Myth 1. There is an invasion of immigrants. Both government and the media have fueled the idea that there's an invasion of immigrants, a hurricane. At a speech last year in Washington, D.C., the ex-Home Secretary Suella Braverman mentioned the figure of 780 million refugees worldwide. The population of the UK is only 67 million, so a figure like 780 million scares people, especially readers of the popular right-wing press like the Daily Mail. If we look at the total UK population and the proportion that are non-UK born, we see that the vast majority of the UK population was born in the UK. Over the past decade, the proportion of immigrants has gone up, but only from 12% to 14% in 2021. So this is far from an invasion. Myth 1 is false. Myth 2. Britain is threatened by cities becoming majority non-white. So some people in the popular press, including Nigel Farage, have been worrying about the fact that some cities are minority white, and he quotes London, Manchester and Birmingham. First, Farage was fact-checked by the BBC and found that he was actually basing this statement on the statistics for minority British white. His figures were misleading. Manchester and London still have a majority white population when non-British white is included. Birmingham is the one city where 49% is white, meaning that it is a minority white city. However, statements like Farage made are actually racist. We can see from information from Birmingham City Council that 78% of Birmingham inhabitants were born in the UK, i.e. almost 8 out of 10 people are British. The BBC ONS information we saw earlier suggested that 43% of Birmingham inhabitants are white British. So if 78% are British and 43% white British, this means that 35% of Birmingham inhabitants are non-white British. Any negative statement made about Britain becoming majority non-white, therefore, is racist because it's somehow implying that there's a difference between white British and non-white British just on the basis of colour of skin. I do appreciate that some people feel concerned by British cities changing, and generally I don't think that racists are all bad people. However, statements like Farage's need to be called out for what they are: racist. Myth 2 is false. Even in a multicultural city like Birmingham, 8 out of 10 people are British. Myth 3, the government is taking back control of immigration. This government has consistently had an anti-immigration rhetoric. It goes back to Theresa May's hostile environment, developed into the Johnson-Cummings take back control, and became the Braverman invasion language. However, the past few years have seen a dramatic rise in immigration. This is staggering, and I don't think it's been reported enough in the press. We can break down this data into migrants from the EU and outside the EU. Since the referendum in 2016, there has been a consistent fall in immigration from the EU. However, there's been a much more dramatic increase in immigration from outside the EU. We can break this data down to look at the reasons for immigration. The blue segment represents asylum seekers. Although they've increased, they are a relatively small part of the growth. They currently represent around 9% of total immigration. Most of the increase has come from those entering the country to study and work, the orange and the purple segments. These are not people that have turned up in Dover asking to come into the country. These people have migrated to the UK as a result of the government issuing visas for them to do so. Myth 3 is therefore false. The government has presided over a massive increase in immigration. Myth 4. Stopping the small boats will help control immigration. The Prime Minister made stopping the small boats one of his 5 targets for 2023. As this chart shows, although there's been a significant reduction in the number of migrants crossing the channel in a small boat, the 2023 level was still the second highest on record. Rishi Sunak has completely failed in stopping the boats. However, if he did stop the boats, would this help to control immigration? This chart compares the numbers coming by boat to total UK immigration. The number of asylum seekers coming in small boats is less than 3% of total UK immigration. Even if the boats were completely stopped, this would have very little effect on total immigration. So myth 4 is false. The small boats are only a small proportion of total immigration. Myth 5. The UK is taking in too many refugees. We can compare the number of refugees accepted by the UK with our closest peer EU and G7 countries. It's clear that the UK, shown by the yellow line, is taking in less refugees than these other countries, especially compared to Germany and France, shown by the blue and green lines. We're facing a refugee crisis in the world, and particularly in the face of climate change, the number of people seeking asylum is only going to increase. The UK always thinks of itself as a compassionate country. I think we're actually going to have to be prepared to take in more refugees, as it would appear that we're not actually playing our part. So myth 5 is false. The UK is not taking its fair share of refugees. We should take in more. Remember, these are legitimate refugees that are legitimately given asylum. Myth 6. Most migrants seeking asylum are gaming the system. It's a fact that some asylum seekers have come from countries such as Turkey, Albania or India. It doesn't mean that all are automatically not genuine asylum seekers, but some might be considered economic migrants rather than genuine refugees. Braverman talks of economic migrants gaming the asylum system. When she's talking about the total number of refugees that may be entitled to claim asylum under international conventions and treaties globally, she makes the statement that some, perhaps many, were genuine refugees. Again, she's raising doubts that most asylum seekers are not genuine, that somehow most people claiming asylum are gaming the system. Of course, the press pick up on this. The Daily Mail announced that Channel migrants are not refugees, with "not" underlined. Interesting then that for the past few years, the success rate of asylum applications granted is 75%. 3/4 of asylum seekers are successful in legitimately entering the UK. Some of the 25% that are not successful appeal, and of those, half of the appeals are granted, so the success rate is actually higher than 75%. But it's clear that the system is working in excluding those that may be gaming the system. The government does not grant refugee status to economic migrants, but these are a relatively small proportion of the total. Myth 6 is false. Most asylum seekers are actually legitimate refugees. In conclusion, these 6 myths have constantly been peddled by the government and the media. I'm concerned that some people's attitudes towards immigrants have been influenced by this. I think it's so important for us to have the correct facts in front of us before deciding our views on immigration. I hope you found this information useful. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. I would really appreciate that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.